Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Unmentionables. I'm your host, Connor, and this week we're going to do things a little bit differently. As we approach the holiday season, I thought it would be fitting to give the rest of the cast a week off, allowing everyone to enjoy a well-deserved break. After all, we've been working hard, and with the upcoming holiday special just around the corner, it's important to take a step back and recharge. Today, it's just you and me, the team of us, two of a kind, mano y mano. Our two selves. Okay, honestly, that's just getting a little bit more annoying than I thought it would be. Anyway, I hope you're ready to hear a lot of my voice, because for the next half hour or so, that's going to be your constant companion. My voice isn't exactly your cup of tea. I completely understand. Trust me, I'm the one who has to edit it week in and week out, so believe me when I say it's much harder for me than it is for you. I'm fully aware of the sound of my own voice after all these hours of editing, so let me tell you, listener, I get it. But hey, I'm here to make sure you enjoy the content, even if I'm the one doing all the talking, so stick with me. Or don't, I guess. This episode is definitely a bit of a departure from our usual format, and I'm genuinely curious to know if this is something our audience enjoys. So if you have any feedback on this, whether you like it or not, please leave a comment on Spotify or email us at theunmentionablescast@gmail.com. Your feedback helps us continue to evolve and deliver content that resonates with you, so we'd really appreciate hearing what you think. All right, with all the housekeeping out of the way, I want to talk to you, with you, at you, I guess, about podcasting. We're going to dive into why I initially got into podcasting and how the purpose behind it has evolved over time. I'll also be sharing some personal anecdotes and behind-the-scenes stories along the way, giving you a glimpse into what goes on behind the microphone. It's a bit of a journey through the reasons that led me here and the process and how it's all shaped both the show and my perspective, so buckle up, buttercup. For those of you who don't know me very well, you might be surprised to hear that I spend a significant amount of time each year listening to podcasts. In fact, this year alone, my Spotify Wrapped revealed that I clocked in around 19,000 minutes of podcast content. To put that into perspective, you'd have to listen to roughly 500 episodes of the Unmentionables Cast over the course of a year, or about 1 1/3 episodes every single day to hit those numbers. And here's the kicker. As the one who controls the stat sheet, I can confidently say that none of you have hit those numbers. Fake fans, am I right? Just kidding, of course. But seriously, almost 50% of my listening time is spent tuning into people chatting away into a microphone. The rest of my listening hours are split between music and audiobooks, mostly Mac Miller and Greta Van Fleet for music, and half-finished self-improvement books for the rest. So what makes podcasts one of the main ways I like to spend my listening time? Well, for starters, convenience. Podcasts are super accessible. You can listen to them anywhere, anytime, no matter where you are. And if you've got your phone, computer, or any other listening device, you've got a whole work of audio content at your fingertips. You can pause, skip, rewind whenever you want, and they fit into just about any routine. Driving to work? Hop on the Blackjack Apprenticeship podcast to brush up on your card counting skills. Doing dishes? Yup. Perfect time to listen to half-ass history and hear an Australian guy try to explain the history of the sport cricket. And if you really want to impress your peers, you can listen to the Unmentionables Cast to show off how much of an intellectual you are. All jokes aside, it's like having a personal radio show customized to your taste, available 24/7. The variety is immeasurable, and a lot of times podcasts get so niche that you feel like you've found a secret club of people who totally get you. Don't worry, I get you 66% of listeners who are still here. Another big reason I love podcasts is authenticity. A lot of the best podcasts have a laid-back, conversational vibe. You're not just listening to some scripted corporate show. It's like you're eavesdropping on a chat between friends. Hosts are often real, relatable, and passionate about their topics, which create this sense of connection, like you're a part of the conversation even though you're just listening. I share all of this to give you a better understanding of the vision I have for the Unmentionables Cast. I'm not reinventing the wheel with my podcast. In fact, most new podcasts tend to start with the same basic concept: 2 or more hosts having conversations about various topics. This banter-style format is incredibly common in the podcasting world, and as a result, the market is saturated with shows just like it. So while the format itself isn't groundbreaking, it's the unique touch, the chemistry, and the perspective we bring that I believe has the potential to make the Unmentionables Cast stand out in a crowded space. Let's rewind a bit. Let's go all the way back to 2022, when the idea for the Unmentionables Cast first came to life. Originally, the concept was simple. It was going to be a casual talk show between Jeremy and I, where each of us would bring a 15-minute topic, anything from current events to quirky stories or just random things that caught our attention that week. The goal was to keep it lighthearted, fun, and silly, steering clear of heavy or taboo topics that people don't typically discuss in a casual setting. I can't quite recall what I initially wanted to call it, but I'm sure you can imagine the ridiculous names Jeremy threw out there. Interesting, to say the least. But from those early days, the foundation of the show began to take shape. As it was, the project never actually made it onto the microphone. Jeremy was mostly entertaining the idea because, as a good friend, he could see how passionate I was about it and didn't have the heart to rein me in. Honestly, I wasn't in the right mental space to commit to something weekly, let alone a project that would require constant creative energy and editing skills that I didn't yet have. My idea for the, I guess we'll call it unnamed podcast, ended up just getting pushed aside, buried deep in the bottom of my notes app, left to gather digital dust. Eventually, it was archived into the cloud, probably floating around in some data center in North Virginia or Silicon Valley, an artifact of my spontaneous nature waiting for its time to resurface. I think the real reason Unnamed Podcast never had the chance to take off was because I lacked the motivation to give it a deeper purpose. You see, if you had to ask me back then why I wanted to make a podcast, my answer would have been simple. Because it would be fun. Because we'd be good at it. Because we could make some serious cash, bro. While all of those reasons may have been true, well, except for the cash part, I'm still waiting on that sweet payout, by the way, they weren't strong enough to sustain a podcast long term. Podcasts made for reasons like that are bound to fail. Take my own experience, for instance. What would have happened to my podcast when I went through a tough bout of depression in 2023 and 2024? Fun would not have been on the agenda, that's for sure, and I probably would have just stopped. What would have happened when I realized that none of my hosts were professional speakers and that I wasn't a professional editor? For the first 5 episodes, I spent over 15 hours editing each episode. The idea of because we'd be good at it just didn't hold up under the pressure. And what about the costs? When I started to realize how expensive audio equipment, editing software, hosting platforms, and honestly bribes for certain hosts, Jeremy, shout out to the Lego sets, would be, the reality of it all kind of set in. Let's just say that when I realized the Patreon dollary dues wouldn't be dollary doing nearly enough to pay off the investments, I'd likely have failed. All of these challenges, both mental and financial, highlight that a podcast built on the idea of fun or potential is just too fragile to withstand the ups and downs of the real world. All of these hypothetical hiccups contributed to the reason why Unnamed Podcast never happened. The key lesson I learned from that experience is that you need a real purpose to drive motivation for a project like a podcast. It's not about chasing potential financial gains or external validation. It's about finding intrinsic value in what you're doing. At the time, I didn't fully understand that, and poor Jeremy, he was subjected to my guilt trips for several months while I tried to figure it all out. Even though Unnamed Podcast was prematurely shelved, it still played a crucial role in the journey to help plant the seeds that would eventually grow into the Unmentionables Cast, which is why I wanted to share this story with you today. One could look back and classify it as a failure, and in some ways that's true. But what I took away from that experience was invaluable. It taught me what it really takes to start and maintain a project. Sometimes just the thought of investing your time and energy into something can feel completely overwhelming. But through that struggle, I was able to learn and grow, and eventually that experience set the stage for what we're doing now. Sorry, I have to do a water break. I got some soup that Alexa made for me. It's bomb. All right. Where were we? Oh, yes, the pit of despair. 2023 was a year dedicated to laying the groundwork for my future with Alexa. During that time, we faced one of the toughest decisions either of us has ever made, moving out of Colorado to Washington. Leaving behind our home, our jobs, our families, and our friends wasn't something we took lightly. It required an immense amount of effort, sacrifice, and dedication. 2023 was definitely not the year to start a podcast. Honestly, I didn't even think about it. My creative energy was consumed with restructuring my relationships with family and friends, learning how to stay connected through regular calls and messages, and most importantly, building a new home for myself and my partner in Washington. It was a year of transition, and the podcast had to take a back seat to those more immediate priorities. 2024 was a different story. The first half of the year was a struggle as I battled mental health issues, particularly depression. And after a while, I made the decision to seek outside help through therapy and medication management. Now, we could dive into that chapter, but honestly, I'm just going to save it for another time because it's not the main focus of today's discussion. For now, let's stay on track. We're still talking about podcasts after all. My time in therapy had a profound impact on how I approach my mental processes and interact with the world around me. It didn't just help me develop better coping strategies or increase my emotional resilience, though those were definitely key benefits. More than anything, therapy made me more introspective. It sparked a curiosity within me to understand myself on a deeper level. Through therapy, I gained the ability to see things from a new perspective, whether it was a relationship, work stress, or personal goals. I dedicated 2024 to really digging into my own mind, examining and breaking down negative thought patterns like self-sabotage, toxic relationships, perfectionism, and so many more. It became a journey of self-discovery, and in the process, I started to see the world and myself in a completely different light. From this renewed drive of self-reflection, analysis, and awareness, I began to truly understand the value of my intentions with others and how they, in turn, influence me. Of course, I've always valued my relationships, and anyone who knows me would agree that my loyalty and devotion to some of my closest friends are unmatched. When I meet people like Dan, Jeremy, Jessica, Alexa, Brooke, and many others you haven't had the pleasure of hearing from yet, I form deep connections and hold on to them tightly. The difference between before and now is that I've gained the ability to more clearly recognize how these people influence me and make me a better version of myself. This newfound awareness became the spark that ignited my passion to create the Unmentionables Cast. I wanted to share my friends with the world, to give a platform for their voices and personalities to shine. I wanted to highlight the incredible people who've shaped me and let their influence spread beyond just our circle. Now, before anyone starts thinking that I'm claiming my friends are somehow better than yours, let me back up a bit. I want to clarify that while I'm clearly biased in my love and admiration for these people, I'm not suggesting that the kind of bond we share is unique. In fact, I genuinely hope that you have relationships like the ones I have with my friends. Each of the people I've mentioned brings something different to the table. They live diverse lives, have distinct personalities, alternative viewpoints, and a mix of strengths and weaknesses. What ties us together, though, is that they're all honest, vulnerable, kind, and caring individuals. And I hope you have friends who embody these qualities too, because those are the kinds of relationships that make life richer and more fulfilling. The Unmentionables Cast has become a way to share with the world how I derive value from my relationships with others. I'll be the first to admit that I am incredibly flawed, and I'm not the kind of person who looks in the mirror and feels like I'm exactly who I want to be. That's why I surround myself with people who possess the qualities and strengths that I don't have. People who inspire me to grow and become better. Take Dan, for example. He is incredibly purpose-driven, always setting clear goals for meaningful reasons and sticking to them no matter what. His dedication to his family and friends is impeccable. While some might describe him as a hardened man, he still practices empathy and vulnerability in a way that teaches me about balance and strength. Then there's Jeremy, who embodies a different kind of admirable character. Jeremy is incredibly charismatic, and he deeply cares about how every action he takes, every word he speaks, impacts the people around him. His kindness and warmth make it easy for others to be around him, and he doesn't hesitate to take chances on people. His kindness is inclusive, genuine, and uplifting, always focused on making others feel seen and valued. Dan doesn't just teach me how to stay motivated. He teaches me how to use that motivation for the right reasons. Jeremy doesn't merely show me how to be kind and caring. He teaches me how to use kindness and care to make a real lasting impact on those around me. These are the lessons I strive to share and pass on through the Unmentionables Cast. The value I aim to create is rooted in the strength, wisdom, and compassion I receive from my relationships with these incredible people. The idea of the Unmentionables Cast came together when I realized that the content wasn't going to be scripted or unscripted topics where we swallow a microphone and regurgitate nonsensical garbage that nobody actually cares about. I have real conversations with these characters on a regular basis where real ideas are shared and real lessons are learned. Ideas that are clearly valuable as they speak for themselves through me, a person who is improving because of them each day. In my opinion, the content really speaks for itself. The narrative writes itself. What might start as a casual conversation about something as simple as domestic responsibilities inevitably evolves into something much deeper. It turns into a reflection on how to practice patience, how to extend grace to those around you, and how to show love through acts of service. Not because you expect something in return, but because you recognize the opportunity to give. A great example of this is episode 8, ADHD with Dan. What begins as a discussion about how ADHD affects me transitions into a conversation about understanding, empathy, and the importance of giving without expectation. It's these kinds of moments that make the podcast special, and I hope listeners find value in the way these conversations naturally unfold. The Unmentionables Cast isn't about simply creating content for the sake of giving you something to listen to. For me, this podcast serves as a way to document my personal journey of self-improvement through a platform I truly cherish. I'm not in it to capitalize on podcasting because I want to have fun, show off my strengths, or chase after that sweet, sweet cheddar. I'll create episodes even when life isn't all that fun. I'll create them not because I'm already good at something, but because I'm working to get better. If I make some money along the way, great. If not, okay, let's be honest, it would still be pretty cool if it paid some bills. The truly amazing thing about the Unmentionables Cast is that people tune in week after week because they genuinely want to follow my journey and see how it's evolving. They want to know what's new in my life. I've even had family members I haven't spoken to in years reach out to tell me, hey, I listened to the podcast. It's become a way for them to reconnect with me, learn more about who I am and what I'm up to. It's not just family either. People I've never met from places I've never been, Europe, South America, they're out there rooting for me. It's incredible to think that though our paths may never cross, they're still a part of my journey, cheering me on. I'm getting messages from listeners who are encouraging me to grow, to listen, and to keep learning. And what's even more powerful is that those same listeners are on their own paths of growth, listening and learning alongside me. We're all in this together, and that connection is what makes it so special. Water time. All I'm really doing with the Unmentionables Cast is recording the kinds of conversations I would be having anyway. For example, when the guilt and pride of not calling my family during the holidays started to weigh on me, I reached out to the one person who is best at eliminating toxic expectations and keeping relationships strong. That conversation became episode 11, Making That Phone Call with Brooke. When I was feeling homesick and isolated, and I needed a bit of encouragement to remind myself that I was on the right path, I turned to the person who had already been through what I was experiencing, come out stronger, and emerged more confident. That conversation turned into episode 5, Big Moves with Dan. And even when I couldn't make up my mind between driving to Chick-fil-A or reheating a lasagna for dinner, I called the one person who I knew could help me assess which path was the better choice. Now, unfortunately, they didn't answer, so I reached out to Jeremy instead, and we spent the time analyzing the pressing issue of whether living with sandpaper skin or in a bag of milk would be the better option. Now, not that you need the episode number because it's our most listened to episode for some reason, but that was episode 7, Would You Rather, with Jeremy. Long story short, or maybe long depending on how you look at it, the Unmentionables Cast is going strong into 2025, and I have no plans to slow down as long as there are still lessons for me to learn. We'll continue to cover these topics that many people find unmentionable. Get it? Yeah. And who knows, we might even add some new voices to the lineup. I want to take a moment to thank our entire listener base. It truly means a lot to be validated for the work that goes into a project like this. It's not just about me sharing my story, it's about all of us growing together. Each message, comment, or shout out from listeners like you makes me realize how interconnected we all are in this journey. Your feedback and support drive the growth of this podcast, and I can't thank you enough for that. A huge shout out goes to our amazing patrons over at patreon.com/theunmentionables. Every $1 per episode you donate brings us one step closer to our dream of selling out and driving off into the sunset in our Lambos. A massive thank you to... A massive thank you goes out to Jess, Jeremy, Dan, Brooke, and Alexa for taking the plunge with me. You're always up for a yap session, and you show incredible vulnerability and bravery, even when it's being recorded. And, well, edited to make you sound a little bit silly. Nobody said editor Connor was a fair man. Since there's always room for a call to action, let me say this. If you like the show, please share your favorite episode on your socials or simply tell your friends. And if you don't like the show, well, honestly, I don't quite understand why you're using us for your masochism kink, but hey, I'm not going to yuck anyone's yum. You do you. We won't make it weird if you don't. We'll be recording our holiday specials in the next week or so please send in any last-second questions you'd like answered on the air to theunmentionablescast@gmail.com. Lastly, please send me some feedback about this episode. It took a lot of work for me to put it together, and I won't be doing it again if you all don't want me to. Seriously, it's easier for me not to, so let me know if you found it enjoyable or not. Happy holidays goes out to all of you, and thanks again for being part of this journey with me. Remember, growth isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you next time on the Unmentionables Cast. All of these hypothetical Wow, really? I wrote that into the script? Jesus. All of these hypothetical hiccups contributed to the... Seriously? Why did I do that?